Hello, I'm Sandra Jones, and welcome to our new normal. Thanks for joining us for this NASA and U.S. Air Force event, STEM Journeys, where we will hear about two very special STEM journeys from two remarkable individuals. As we practice our social distancing, I have Colonel Nick Hague, NASA astronaut, and Major General Jeannie Leavitt joining me virtually. We are excited to be with you as we learn about career pathways and opportunities for students interested in pursuing STEM careers. Thanks to those of you who have submitted questions ahead of time. We still want you to be a part of the conversation and hope you will join us by tweeting us your questions using the hashtag AskNASA and hashtag AimHigh. Let's get into it. As I mentioned, I want to welcome two individuals with renowned accomplishments under their belts, both of whom have overcome obstacles and continued to break barriers throughout their impressive STEM careers. From NASA, we have Kansas native Colonel Nick Hague, who was selected as an astronaut by NASA in 2013 and was the first astronaut from his class to be assigned to a mission. In March 2019, Hague was part of Expedition 59 and 60 aboard the International Space Station. Hague conducted 3 spacewalks during his mission, totaling 19 hours and 56 minutes, with a total of 203 days spent in space. He returned to Earth on October 4th, 2019. From the U.S. Air Force, joining us today is Major General Jeannie Leavitt, the first female fighter pilot in the Air Force and the first woman to command the 57th Wing at Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada. General Leavitt flies the F-15E Strike Eagle, and she is a command pilot with more than 3,000 flying hours, including over 300 combat hours. Major General Jeannie Leavitt is currently the commander of Air Force Recruiting Service at Randolph Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas. Let's learn a little more about her impressive background.
I'm sure you're a Sierra Hotel pilot and looking forward to the F-15.
Yes, sir.
Is there anything you cannot do in comparison with your male counterparts? Do you have the stamina to compete one-on-one, do you think?
Yes, sir. I go through the same training that my male counterparts go through, and I've had no problems to this point, and I'm looking forward to the challenge of flying the F-15E.
Lieutenant, what is it?
When I started pilot training in 1992, the Air Force, indeed the world, was different. And trust me, so were the popular hairstyles.
I definitely wanted to fly fighters, so when it became
I didn't set out to break barriers, but I've had a lot of opportunities in my career to do just that. From being the Air Force's first female fighter pilot, to the first woman to command a combat fighter wing,
As members of the 57th Wing, we all have the chance to be part of something bigger than ourselves. I challenge you to take advantage of this opportunity.
and though I didn't used to like the term trailblazer, if it means that those who follow the same path meet less resistance, then I guess I'm okay with that title. The Air Force is different now, and so is my hair. But throughout the years, one thing has stayed the same: my philosophy.
Gender, race, religion, none of that matters. What matters is how you perform.
And that's how I got here. It's the message we pass on to new airmen. It's the spirit of our great Air Force, and I couldn't be more proud to be a part of it. Aim high, airmen.
Thank you so much for joining us today, General.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm excited to spend some time talking about my STEM journey and all the opportunities that are available to young men and women who want to pursue STEM.
At this point, I want to turn it over to astronaut Nick Hague.
Thanks, Sandra. I want to echo, it's really exciting to be here with you, to be with General Leavitt, and to have this unique opportunity. These are unique times, so I first want to start off and say I hope that everybody out there that's tuning in and participating today is staying safe and is healthy. Unique times give us unique opportunities. And so this is one of those unique opportunities to be able to reach out and engage so many people that that might have an interest in STEM fields or are thinking about getting involved with STEM, and to share those opportunities with them. So I'd like to set the tone with a little video about that's
50 years ago, we went to the moon. We called it Apollo.
What many people don't know is that Apollo had a twin.
She was a woman named Artemis, goddess of the moon.
We are returning to the moon
as a new generation of explorers.
This time to stay.
And to prepare to achieve humanity's next giant leap of sending the first human missions to Mars.
We believe our course will redefine what is possible.
That we would discover life-saving,
earth-changing science.
And that the challenges ahead will inspire generations.
This is our manifest.
For all who wondered if we could return.
For all who dreamed of pressing beyond.
This is your calling.
We go for all of America.
We go. We go as the Artemis generation.
We go.
As you both are aware, we have received so many great questions on social, so let's dive right into the conversation. This question would be great for Colonel Hague to answer. How can someone become an astronaut, and what advice would you give them?
Well, let me let you in on a little secret. Everyone that has become an astronaut did something before they were an astronaut. So the trick is to find what you're passionate about, what really motivates you. Because if you get involved with something that you're passionate about, you're going to do as good as you can possibly do at that. And that success will build on itself, and it'll open doors and more opportunities. And then ultimately, when you're ready to submit your application, you can do that. But you've got to find your passion. So for me, that was this idea of serving my country. You know, I'm an active duty Air Force officer, and that started back going to the Air Force Academy and getting exposed into what a life of service was like. But that was also married up with this keen interest in space and complicated machines. And ever since I was, 3 feet tall, I loved to break things and put them back together and to figure out how they worked. And so I was an engineer since my first memories. That's my calling. And so to be able to marry up that service with my interest in space and that idea of engineering, that's the passion that I pursued. So the challenge to all of you is to find what you're passionate about and pursue that. And then when you're ready, come join NASA.
Similarly, General Leavitt, could you discuss the Air Force pilot training pipeline and how one might go about doing that?
Absolutely. So we are interested in pilots from all different backgrounds. Personally, I was an unlikely pilot. I had never flown in even a commercial airplane until I was 18 years old. I did not know what I wanted to do, and I followed my passion. I loved math and science, so I didn't know what that would entail. My uncles told me go into engineering, so I did. And believe it or not, I got my Air Force start while I was working at NASA Johnson Space Center. I ran into a future Air Force pilot. And that's why I learned about it. And the path I took was Air Force ROTC. I joined partway through because I didn't know that I wanted to do that until I learned more about it. And so, in Nick's case, he went to the Air Force Academy. If people are already finished college, they can go to officer training school. There's different paths you can go, and then you compete for a pilot position. And so the pilot training is about a year long. It is competitive. But if you find your passion and you work hard at that, you really set yourself up for success and increase your odds of being able to do that.
Now, both of you have overcome obstacles and broken barriers throughout your impressive careers. Let's talk about some of the challenges you both have faced. General Leavitt, you became the Air Force's first female fighter pilot. What was that like? What challenges did you face along the way?
I never wanted to be the first. I just wanted to be a fighter pilot. The way the timing worked is why I ended up being the first one. When I graduated from pilot training in 1993, you would pick your assignment based on merit order. So as the top graduate, I was the first one to pick my assignment. However, while the law had changed allowing women in combat, Department of Defense had a policy that did not allow women in combat. So as a result, it was the gray zone. At the end of pilot training, I stood up and I said, I would want to fly the F-15E Strike Eagle, and I was told no. That's a lesson there in terms of perseverance and really going after what it is you would like. They told me to make another choice. I did, because those are the rules. I'm in the military. And it was 3 months later when the Department of Defense changed their policy. And that was the clip you saw at the beginning from that press conference. Right after the Department of Defense changed their policy, then the Air Force announced that we are going to start training women to fly fighters right away. And so I had wonderful opportunity to fly. There was resistance. Not everyone was in universal agreement that women should fly fighters. So I worked twice as hard. I wanted to prove myself, not just for myself, but for any that would follow, that women could be just as good at being fighter pilots as men could be. And hard work pays off. So one of the things we did is the fact when I first started flying fighters, I was the only woman in fighter squadrons. As time has gone on, we've gotten a number more. We have women in flying all types of aircraft. In fact, one of our Thunderbird pilots, Thunderbird 5, she's Captain Michelle Curran. And then we also have Captain Kristen Wolf is our new F-35 demo pilot. So it's pretty exciting. And one of the things we did is in conjunction with the movie Captain Marvel that came out that the Air Force helped with, we put together a clip. We brought women fighter pilots, women mobility pilots, just a whole bunch of Air Force female pilots together at Edwards Air Force Base and put together a clip that turned out really neat. So I wanted to share that real quick. We call it Origin Story.
Every superhero has an origin story. We all got our start somewhere. For us, it was the U.S. Air Force.
Wow, how inspirational. Colonel Hague, can you also talk about some of the challenges that you have faced throughout your career and overcome?
Yeah, so I think it's important for everyone to realize that we all face challenges, and it's easy to look at, General Leavitt and see her as a general and a fighter pilot and think that everything just worked out for her magically. Or it's easy to look at an astronaut and think that, that it just worked out. In reality, there's challenges throughout your life, and you're really defined by how you respond to those challenges. It took me 3 applications to NASA in 10 years to convince them that, yes, I had what it took, and I finally got accepted. You've got to face those adversities. And many times, life is not going to unfold like you think it's going to happen. I spent my entire adult life, the last 7 years for sure, training at NASA of strategy to rocket. And believe it or not, it didn't turn out anything like I expected it to. I am a living example of a successful failure. And 2 minutes into our launch, the rocket underneath myself and my cosmonaut commander, Alexei Ovchinin, disintegrated. And so we had to abort that launch and then try to do that again 5 months later. So if I could impress anything to those that are listening out there, is that you're going to have challenges, but how you respond to those challenges is really going to define you. The important thing to know is that you're not alone. When you look at that launch abort, there was a team of search and rescue troops that extracted us from the capsule. There were teams of the psych support team on the ground that helped us work through the emotional trauma, not just for myself, but my family and my relatives of watching that happen and to process that. So You don't survive something like that on your own, and you don't recover from something like that on your own. There are so many people around you, and it's that foundation of support that you need to realize is there, the friends and the family and the loved ones, or the professional support that are there surrounding you, whether it's school teachers or advisors or counselors. They're there to support you and help you through those challenges. And so that's why, because I relied on that team, 5 months later, Alexei and I, along with Christina Cook, tried it again, and we made it the second time. We overcame that challenge. And so I hope those are some lessons that people can walk away with today.
Thank you. For those tuning in at home, don't forget you can submit your questions as well using the hashtag AskNASA and hashtag AimHigh. This next question is for Colonel Hague. What was your favorite moment or a defining moment you had while in space? Well, I have to say, actually finally getting there was a pretty sweet moment. The second time around. It's one of those things that space is so unique. There's so many different features and things that challenge you, whether it's looking down at the Earth or it's watching things float in front of you and defy gravity, right in front of your eyes. But I think really, the pinnacle experience that I had up there was performing a spacewalk. And there's a couple different reasons for that. You're outside the space station, you're in your own spacesuit, your own spacecraft, if you will, and the only thing connecting you back to the station is this braided steel cable, and you're out there. And at some point, you get so comfortable in the suit that just kind of melts away, and you're just working on top of the station as the Earth glides by underneath, and you can see mountain ranges and deserts and oceans just slowly, gracefully go underneath you as you're just at your job, doing whatever task that you're supposed to be doing. It's special because it's at that unique perspective, but it's even more special because you're out there as a team. You're out there with your wingman, working side by side, depending on each other to get your task done that you're supposed to be doing. And it goes beyond that because you're part of this gigantic team on the ground. And mission control is helping guide you through this. And all the engineers in the back rooms are helping you work through problems. And it's only possible to do this seemingly impossible thing because of the team. So when you see a spacewalk on TV, I want everybody to think about the astronauts, sure. But think about the tens of thousands of people on the ground that make something that spectacular possible. And that's a team where we need all the help we can. So even if you don't want to be an astronaut, we can use your help on the ground as part of this team, making impossible things look routine. General Leavitt, can you also share with us one of your favorite moments that you've had throughout your career?
I would say probably when deployed downrange. You train for months and years to do your mission. And when you deploy downrange and you are supporting our friendly forces on the ground, when you are the reason that they get back to their forward operating base, that you provide that top cover, you train for this time and again on our training ranges and exercises. The teamwork is absolutely key. You have teamwork within your formation with your wingmen and other members of your formation. You also have the teamwork with the folks on the ground. Communicating with them and making sure you're coordinated. And just like with astronauts and the launch, there is so much that goes into just launching the aircraft for those missions. And whether it's the maintainers, the avionics troops, all the different people that are in the team that make that mission happen. And so that's one of the things I would say is so rewarding is feeling like you're part of something bigger than just you. You are part of a team. You are part of a team that is doing something with purpose, whether it's protecting our freedom, whether it's exploring space. That teamwork and purpose is something I find incredibly rewarding with my job.
We've been getting a lot of great questions on social, so let's go ahead and answer one of those right now. Alice on Twitter asks, how do you manage stress and control impulse during emergency situations?
I'll start out on that one to talk about the stress factor. One thing the Air Force is good at is training, and they can make things incredibly stressful. Whether it's just your emergency procedure simulator, when you're in the simulator and they make everything possible go wrong with that aircraft, and you have to handle it, and it's very, very stressful. Or when we're getting ready to deploy and we do training out on the Nellis Ranges, and we have simulated surface-to-air missiles, we have simulated adversary aircraft. Now we have cyber aggressors, we have space aggressors, we have all these things that are extremely realistic, and it's relevant, and it puts so much stress on you, but it builds your ability to handle that stress so you know how to react. Very much on the air domain. I'm curious in the space domain, Nick, any perspective from there?
Yeah, yes, ma'am. So it's very similar. We train, you know, so the things that would get me through something like a launch abort, I look back to the skills that I developed doing flight tests back in the Air Force and in-flight emergencies that I had while I was doing flight tests. And so it's one of those things where training is so key to building this reflex, because it all boils down to, you know, if I take myself back to the launch abort, you know, the seconds after we know what has happened, we've been pulled away from the capsule or pulled away from the rocket, and the capsule is on its way back to land, you focus on the things that you can control. And that's what you do. And that training helps you maintain that calm, because there's so many things that I could worry about that I have no control over. But I know that if I can focus on the procedures in front of me and the actions that I can take to improve my chances for survival, then that focus is what's going to get me through. So focusing on the things you control is super helpful, you know. And so we talk about, mentioned the launch abort was an example of a successful failure. You know, we're at the 50th anniversary of one of the most spectacular successful failures, you know, that we've witnessed in Apollo 13. You know, so tomorrow is the 50th anniversary of their splashdown. And when you think about what it took to get them through that, it's really trying to focus on the things you can control. You know, we have a problem. Okay, now, given that problem, what do we need to do in order to get them back and everybody on the ground? You know, that the spectacular team of engineers that helped respond to that and come up with their creative solutions to the problems as they occurred, with the focus of getting the crew back safely. So training's huge. It prepares you for all the things that we can think of. And then that mindset helps you process the things that we can't think of and focus in on the things that we can really control.
Thank you so much. We have many students tuning in today. Can you share advice with them on pursuing degrees in STEM if they're interested? General Leavitt?
Absolutely. So personally, I loved math and science, and so I knew I wanted to go into those fields. However, I didn't really understand engineering. I had some uncles who were engineers, and I asked them, I said, well, what do you do? Like, how is it a job? And they said, well, engineers solve problems. And I said, okay, I still don't understand how that's a job. But I knew that I loved the math and science, and I knew it would allow me to do that. And I was fascinated with airplanes. Even though I had never been in an airplane until I was 18 years old, I was fascinated with aerodynamics, with flight. And so I went into aerospace engineering. And one of the things I would say is believe in yourself, be willing to work hard. Because I remember very well a physics class that I took at the University of Texas, and it was extremely challenging. It was hard. And a lot of people I knew dropped out and shifted majors and did other things. And it was something I refused to do. So I doubled down my efforts and I worked that much harder. I also got a great group of study partners because it goes back to that teamwork, not trying to do things on your own, but having a network, having a team to help you be successful. And to this day, I'm great friends with some of my classmates from aerospace engineering back at University of Texas. And so I think that teamwork piece, that working hard, that unwillingness to give up, something we kind of call grit, something we're looking for in future airmen and space professionals is that grit and that determination.
Colonel Hague, what advice would you give to students interested in pursuing STEM degrees?
Yeah, things aren't going to always be easy. I think we mentioned that before. You know, you're going to come into challenges. I always was interested in breaking things apart and putting them back together and how they worked, and that led me into engineering. And there's a lot of math involved with engineering, and a lot of that math is anybody that's out there that's struggling with math, don't give up. You know, my first math class at the Air Force Academy was a remedial math class. So I was at the bottom, and so you can get through it. You just have to, like the general said, you got to have the grit in order to persevere, and you can eventually understand it and look at the doors that it can open for you. So I think the advice I've got for anybody that's interested in STEM is there are opportunities to get engaged in real world problems right now. You know, I have the opportunity as an astronaut to work with different challenges, and I've worked with college students helping design and address different issues, whether they're with our spacesuits or with future missions down to the lunar surface. All of these challenges you can get involved with right now, and so stem.nasa.gov that you can see there is a way to engage in the classroom and bring your curriculum into it. And there are opportunities to get involved through internships at intern.nasa.gov. And so there are opportunities for you to get involved today. All you have to do is have the initiative and be brave enough to take that first step.
Great, thank you. Next, can we hear from both of you about how NASA and the Air Force work together and collaborate?
Sure, I'll start out with that one. Something that's not known to everyone is that we have a brand new service. It's called the United States Space Force. In 1947, the Air Force became its separate service. Before that, we were the Army Air Corps. But starting in 2019, December 20th to be exact, we stood up the United States Space Force. We had been doing space operations within the Air Force, but it was determined that we needed it as a separate service within the Department of the Air Force, but the United States Space Force. And so space does so many things that people don't even realize. You know, I've asked many students to pull out their phone and look at the blue dot and, that shows your location, and ask them, where does that blue dot come from? Well, we have space professionals who are flying satellites to very precisely pinpoint your location at any given time with GPS, Global Positioning System. Some people don't realize there are an incredible number of pieces of things in space. Okay, some are satellites, some are spacecraft, some are just things that have broken apart. But something that breaks apart, if that hits one of our satellites at the speed they go in space, it could cause incredible damage. And so we have space professionals tracking tens of thousands of these different things in space to make sure there aren't those collisions. When we look into the future of space exploration, we'll be working very closely with NASA and with other partners. And so I think for that explanation in more detail, we'll turn over to Nick.
Yeah, thanks, man. The roots of our cooperation go all the way back to the beginnings of human spaceflight in 1959. And, those initial programs, Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo, and that's, all of human spaceflight is built off that foundation of cooperation. And it continues today. If I just look back to the 7 months that I spent on the space station, and I think to the ways that the Space Force directly supported what I was doing while I was up there. So all of the, tracking for launch and landing and search and rescue that gets us there, the debris avoidance and tracking that General Leavitt spoke about, I was one of those, 28,000 different objects up there, and they made sure that stuff didn't run into us, or at least the stuff that they could track. And space, even though it's big, debris is real, because when I would do those spacewalks that I was talking about, I could see places where little pieces of trash, little, grains of sand, if you will, not much bigger, had hit the outside of the space station, hit a handrail and bored a hole into it, like somebody had taken a drill to the handrail. And so when things are traveling at 5 miles a second, they don't have to be very big to make a pretty big impact. So the Space Force kept us safe. the GPS signal that gives you your blue dot on the cell phone also told us where we were at and how we were oriented. And then we rely on them to bring down all our precious data from the scientific experiments that we do up there. So we depend on all of that. But we're just one of many that depend on the protection that the Space Force provides. But that dependence is only going to continue, and we're going to rely on that support as we push back toward the
That's great. Colonel Hague, we'll have you answer the next question. As many people around the world continue to social distance, what has helped you and what did you learn while spending 203 days in space in an isolated environment?
Yeah, I think, this is a different question now than it was a few months ago. And I think everybody that's viewing today has a better appreciation for how tough isolation can be. The space station is about the size of a 6-bedroom house, and you just have your crew there, and you don't get to go outside except for the occasional spacewalk. So you're inside, and so there are some things, some tricks, some tips that help you survive in that type of isolation. The first one, it's really easy. It's just have a schedule. If you've got a schedule and everybody understands the schedule in the house, then it helps everybody coexist a little bit more, and it makes things more predictable. Because without a schedule, life just kind of happens, you lose track of it. The other thing I'd say is try to focus on making sure that you're taking care of yourself too, both physically and mentally. And so exercise is a really important way to try to keep yourself healthy, but also mentally sharp and relieve some of the stress of the situation. I always use exercise up there. But probably the single most important thing you can do is communicate. Talk about how you're feeling. And though we're isolated, we don't need to be isolated. We can express how we're feeling. We can share that, especially with those that are stuck in that same house with us, right? Talking on orbit amongst the crew and sharing in each other's lives was such a special part of spaceflight, and it's something that I'm going to remember the most.
Something I would say, go ahead.
Go ahead.
One of the things I was going to say when it comes to social distancing, my organization is unique within the Air Force. A lot of Air Force units are all co-located, one location. In the case of Air Force recruiting, we are all over the country. We are in communities, in big cities and small towns, with individuals all over. So we would normally travel quite frequently to do engagements and whatnot. With the current status, we can't. And you hear a lot about social distancing, and it's important. However, one of the things we started kind of shifting our mindset on is we don't want to be socially distant. What we want is we need physical distancing. We need to be physically separated for the sake of not spreading this virus, but socially, we want to be connected. And so one of the things we've really emphasized is physical distancing and social connectedness. We've been utilizing every possible capability, whether it's FaceTime, Zoom, Skype, anything, to try to have those personal connections. And where I would normally travel to go see members in my organization, instead we've been doing virtual visits. And so the virtual visits have become the norm, and it's a lot of fun and it's very engaging. And I think people are surprised when a two-star general calls them and asks how they're doing and tell them that we're all in this together. I'm having to go through the same experiences when it comes to children doing distance learning. That is a whole new experience. And so some of these things that they're experiencing, we are experiencing as well. And so having that connectedness and understanding that we're all in this together and we're one team and we're there for each other is very important.
Thank you. We're continuing to get some really great questions on social media. So we'll ask this one from Joy Hill on Twitter, who wants to know if you can talk about some of your flight instructors or people who have influenced you along your Air Force journey. Colonel Hague, do you want to answer this first, and then we'll turn it over to the general?
Yeah, sure. I'd be glad to. You don't do it on your own. And I can think back to every step along the way, whether it was my advisor in my master's thesis, or it was an instructor at the academy, or the commandant out at the test pilot school, they each had an investment in me, and it's something that I'm always going to be eternally grateful for. Them showing that they care and they're concerned about, helping me be become as much as I wanted to be. And so it's that type of thing that when you think back and reflect on it, your accomplishments are not your own. It's really shared accomplishment. And so I'm in a position now where I'm in a fortunate position where I can try to return the favor a little bit and try to mentor those that are coming behind me. And, and I've been able to do that with some of those student challenges that we talked about in the STEM challenges for Artemis, being able to engage with college students around the country and get them, excited, not just about STEM career fields, because they're already, all in when it comes to STEM, but get them excited about the challenges that we have and how they can make a difference. And so I just encourage everyone to think about the people that are in their lives and to understand that they're there to help, and to also not be afraid to extend a hand and ask if somebody wants help.
General?
I would say in my case, I have been very fortunate. And there's the expression, your attitude determines your altitude. I've always brought a very positive attitude and a willingness to work very, very hard. And I think that's important, because when people would see that, they would, reach out and help. Or, when you have questions and you're working hard and you're engaging, they want to help you. They want to make you better. Because I have been so fortunate to have so many people do just that, whether it was my instructors at UT Austin, instructors at Stanford in pilot training. It's kind of funny because my T-37 instructor pilot from my very initial flight training, turns out he lives here in San Antonio, and I crossed paths with him some months ago. He's a junior ROTC deck commander at Canyon High School. So I went and spoke there on, it's the pay it forward idea, so I went and spoke there on Veterans Day last year. And so it is important to bring that positive attitude and be willing to listen to feedback. Feedback's not always happy, joyful, you got to have thick skin, and people tell you if you're willing to listen, you can get better. And then for those of us who are in a position to pass it on, I think that's so important. I'm very, very excited because a young lady that I crossed paths with about 6 years ago, when she was in high school and saw me speak, she's about to graduate from the United States Air Force Academy, and I'll be commissioning her. So I'm super excited about that.
Very cool. Elise from Twitter also wants to know from both of you, what is your motivation to push forward, especially when things get challenging?
Do you want to start, Nick?
Sure. So it really all boils down to commitment to, the mission. Why am I doing what I'm doing? If you can answer that question, then that helps really distill down why do you want to keep going forward. So why do, if I think back to, the most dynamic example is, why do I want to get to space after I failed the first time and came so close to it being the end? And it boils down to, what are you trying to accomplish? And for me, this idea of service, this idea of a commitment to the benefit of humanity, the scientific discoveries that we're making on the space station are helping improve lives on the ground. They're helping us treat some of our most troubling diseases. They're helping us understand the universe around us. And so being able to make my small contribution to continuing to expand that knowledge base for the benefit of everybody is something that's, it's something that I deeply believe in. But that commitment to something larger than yourself didn't start, when I got to NASA. That started when I said, hey, I'm interested in serving my country in the Air Force, and going to the Air Force Academy and starting that life of service, being part of something bigger than myself. And so ultimately, what's going to get you through the challenge is being able to answer that why question for you.
I agree. I think the why part is very important. And I think back to when I first started in high school and college, and I was very, very driven. But in my case, a lot of it was I have a little sister and I was very, very competitive with her and I wanted to outdo her and she wanted to outdo me. And it drove both of us to work really, really hard. Worked out really well because, it resulted in some scholarships which opened up opportunities. But then it got to a point where I wanted to do my best. And so I didn't want to, it was almost an internal competition. Like I didn't want to do less than I knew I could do. And so I drove myself to work very hard. And it wasn't until later that I ran across the ROTC opportunity and understood that path and understood that opportunity to be part of a team and to do something with purpose. That is what I come back to frequently because that is what's really driven me to stay as long as I have. I came in to fly initially, but I love the people and I love the mission. And so that's why I've continued to, and understanding your purpose on why you're doing what you're doing and is very important, I think.
Ma'am, I
Don't
think
forget at home, you can, go ahead.
That why doesn't stay constant your whole career. It constantly evolves.
Don't forget at home, you can continue to submit your questions using the hashtag AskNASA and hashtag AimHigh. Matt Middleton on Twitter asks, what are the types of activities that you did as young teens that helped shape you on your way to being a pilot, and any successes that you can contribute to those activities?
I think being involved and being on teams is good. You learn so much through teamwork. I played soccer and softball early on. In high school, I got really involved in horseback riding. I absolutely loved horseback riding, and I've ridden on equestrian teams in college. But I think that passion part plays a key role because I loved riding horses. And one of the things that turned out in my case, due to a series of events and not having a lot of funds when it came around time to buy a horse, I ended up with a wild 3-year-old unbroke stallion, and that was my horse. And so that we learned together. One of the lessons I learned was courage, because it was tough. There's that expression, hey, when you get thrown off the horse, you gotta get back on. In my case, it was literal. Like when I literally got thrown off that horse, it hurts when you hit the ground. But having that courage and having that grit and having that determination to not give up. And so, okay, too soon, shouldn't get on with the saddle yet, do more groundwork, build that trust, be able to get on and stay on. I think, whether it's teamwork, whether it's, a different passion that you find, I think, finding what you love and putting yourself into that. And when it's team activities, that's great, because even though it was horseback riding and it sounds individual, I was always on equestrian teams. And so whether it was in performing or competing against other colleges, we were definitely a team.
Yeah, I think teamwork played a big part in the activities that I did as a teenager. I think back, I played lots of sports, football, baseball, basketball, track. But I think that breadth of experience is really important, and you should try to find things that, try things to push you outside your comfort zone. And, so for me, I'm an engineer, I'm an introvert. When I was in high school, I didn't like public speaking. So what do? Let's take debate and forensics and force myself to get up and talk in front of people and try to make sense. And so all of those things build your experience base, and you never know, when you try something that you thought you would hate, you end up liking it, and you found your passion, you found something new. So try lots of things, be involved. Don't be afraid to do something and fail at it, because learn through all those failures.
Great. We have another social media question, this time from Facebook. Micah wants to know about your leadership approach, whether in the Air Force, as a NASA astronaut, or something else. So could you talk a little bit about your leadership approach? We'll start with General Leavitt.
Okay. A couple things. First off, I believe you can be a leader no matter what position. We have formal leadership roles, commanders and whatnot, but we also have informal leaders. And so it's really important to recognize that, and you can lead in any situation. In a leadership role, though, I think one of the most important things is taking care of your people. Know your people, take care of your people. It's been said, if you take care of the people, they'll take care of the mission. And I think that's a very, very important lesson to learn, is that taking care of people, understanding what their needs are, providing them the training, the resources, being willing to listen. We have stood up within Air Force recruiting an innovation cell, so people can bring their ideas. I don't care how crazy they are, bring your ideas and let's try new things. You got to be open, you got to be flexible. I think all of those are very important. And then some of the important things you can do as a leader is to say thank you, when to recognize folks and thank them for all of their hard work. In the government, we don't have, bonuses or things like that. But what we can do is we can recognize our folks and tell them thank you.
Yeah, I can only echo what General Leavitt said. I'm in complete agreement. It's, if there's a few things that I think I gravitate more toward, it is about the people that are part of your team, and you don't have to be in a defined leadership role to be an influence. And so the great crewmate that we've got on board the station is the one that finds what's needed for the team, and that's the niche they fill. And so being adaptable and being able to observe what's needed for the team and then being able to provide that. And so probably the most powerful thing you can do is, like General Leavitt said, listen. Because if you're always talking, then you aren't going to be able to hear what people need. You're not going to be able to observe how to help those around you. And that's really the pinnacle of a great teammate is, they always just provide exactly what's needed, and listening is a really powerful part of that.
Thank you. Marissa from Facebook says her 8-year-old son wants to know what it's like to fly a fighter jet.
Well, I'll throw in my 2 cents. I think it's amazing. Okay, it's a very powerful aircraft, very capable. I'm a little biased to my airplane because I've flown it for so many hours, but we have some really incredible new fighters that are probably just as fantastic or even more so. But when you get in the cockpit and you take off, you have an incredible amount of thrust that sends you up in the air, and then the aircraft is so maneuverable. And after you've flown for a while, you just kind of think about where you want to go, and the aircraft goes. It's very high performance, so you need to have some stamina. Because it can pull a lot of G forces. And so for those who aren't familiar with G forces, if you weigh, say, 100 pounds on Earth, if you pull 9 Gs, which is what most of the aircraft are capable of, it's as if you weigh 900 pounds. And so you need some endurance, you need some strength, but it's an incredible experience.
Yeah, it's a heck of a roller coaster ride. And so if you go to amusement parks, when the amusement parks open back up, that's how you train to be a fighter pilot. Let's go ride those roller coasters all the time. I loved it. So I'm not a pilot. I'm an engineer. So I ended up getting into aviation through flight test engineering. And so I went through test pilot school and got exposure through that. And so some of my most memorable moments in the jet are taking these complicated machines and making them do something they're not supposed to do or that they haven't done before, and seeing what happens. And so that was pretty thrilling. And it was always thrilling because I was up there with a pilot and we were working together as a team. And so I can think back to just the most memorable flights I've got are when we just seemed to, we knew what each other were thinking without even talking. And it was this effortless execution of doing something really risky and really complicated and it going off flawlessly. And it made you feel like you were part of this, this machine, and everything was just right. So it's a thrilling experience.
Wow. Isabella from Twitter is in the 6th grade, and she is interested in attending the Air Force Academy. Do you have any recommendations to prepare her now?
Well, I will defer to Nick on this one. The Air Force Academy is an amazing place that I did not know about when I was her age. And so I've just recently had the chance to go out and visit it a little more. And I think it's absolutely an incredible place to go to college, but I did not personally go there. So I will defer to Nick.
So I may be a little biased. You know, the Air Force Academy is a great place, and it was when I was in junior high, just before starting junior high, I was able to go out and visit the Air Force Academy and see the grounds and the lifestyle, but more importantly, see the academics that they provided there. And I just got, you know, so excited because I was interested in space. I also wanted to grow up and do exactly what General Leavitt did, which was be a fighter pilot, but I didn't have the eyes. So I went there and I, you know, graduated as an engineer. So how do you get in there? I think the things you need to do is you've got to excel at what you're doing. So your coursework, your schoolwork, and I think it really also goes back to that breadth and depth and diversity that you can cultivate as you're growing up. So try lots of things and be adaptable and you know, if it's you know, for everybody out there, if it's Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts or, you know, whatever club you're interested in, or, you know, different athletic programs, you want to try a bunch of stuff, because the Air Force and now the Space Force, because this Saturday we're going to graduate the first, you know, lieutenants for the Space Force from the Air Force Academy. So if you're interested in getting involved in that, you just have to try hard. You can't just get good grades. You've got to show that breadth of experience, because that's going to open your aperture. That's going to open your eyes to the world around you and let you see what this idea of the life of service is really about.
Great. As the class of 2020 prepares for their high school graduations that may look a little different than they had always dreamed of, what advice would you give to your 18-year-old self if you could?
I would say 2 bits of advice. First one is never give up, okay? Because there are times where you feel like this is not going the way I planned. This is not what I had in mind. And then jump at every opportunity that presents itself. You know, so many times you may have a plan, like this is what you plan on doing, and it's not how it works out. The question is, what do you do with the opportunities that are placed in front of you? And so I think it's really important to go in with that mindset of whatever the opportunity is, I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to do my best and see where it takes me. Because so many times with the people who are willing to put their heart into that and seize those opportunities, it opens up the door to even newer opportunities and more opportunities. And so I would say, you know, seize every opportunity you're given and never give up.
Yeah, it is about opportunity. Realize that there are opportunities. So when I graduated high school, I graduated from a small high school, Hoxie, Kansas. You know, I had 39 kids in my class. We were out in the middle of Western Kansas, and the world seemed like it was a long way away from where I was at. And so the opportunities that everybody talked about, I didn't necessarily think were always opportunities that I could take advantage of. Right now, everybody's in social isolation. You know, we're all in our homes. And so those opportunities may seem a long ways away from where you're at, but those opportunities are there. And you know, we've mentioned, you know, in this past hour, the Space Force is this new service inside the Department of Defense is starting up from scratch, and it's taking shape, and there's opportunities to get involved with that. There's opportunities to get involved with the Artemis program, and we've talked about some of the STEM challenges and how you can get involved right now, but also, you know, we're going back to the moon in 2024 and then on to Mars, and we need people to do that. And so we need fresh ideas and new minds to be able to get to that goal. And so those opportunities are out there. So don't think that they don't apply to you. Find them, and we'll give you some links here in a second, but find those opportunities. And if it's something that you're interested in, go after it. Because if you don't try, you're never going to achieve it.
Wow, what a great conversation. There are so There's so much to learn and the possibilities for STEM careers seem endless. As you were just touching on, we've been getting many questions on how to get involved and find out more information about STEM careers, NASA, and the Air Force. Colonel Hague, why don't you start by sharing some of the NASA opportunities, followed by the General sharing some of the Air Force? You bet. I mentioned a few of them. So, there are the STEM opportunities, and so the link for that is stem.nasa.gov. And so we have, 7 different challenges right now just for the Artemis program that are trying to help involve college students and high school students in addressing some of the challenges that we see in trying to get back to the surface of the moon. And it's an opportunity to get to work with the existing astronaut corps. So, I'm helping advise students across the country. I've been engaging with students across the country, trying to help them in these problems that they're addressing. So there's opportunities there. Then there's opportunities to come work at NASA. So there's the intern program. And so, intern.nasa.gov, you can come and experience what it's like to work inside that. And though it may be different, in the near term, some of those internships may be virtual, but you're going to get your toe in the door. And if you're excited about space and the human exploration of space, this is a great way to do it.
For the Air Force, our main location is airforce.com. We have other links as well, which I think they'll put up, but airforce.com is kind of your starting point. And the fact is there are so many ways to serve in our Air Force. Sometimes people think that pilot's the only option, but it's not. It's one of many, many opportunities. We have engineers, we have scientists, we have so many ways that you can serve. It also can be in or out of uniform. It can be full-time, it can be part-time. And so that's one of the messages we're trying to spread, is the fact that you can be active duty, you can be Air National Guard, you can be reserve. You can also be an officer, you can enlist, you can be a civilian. We have the Air Force Civilian Service. And one of the things is the Air Force loves education. And so there are so many opportunities to further your education when you join the Air Force. And so airforce.com is the place that it's the best place to start. And then we have all the other social media links that you can see.
Thank you. Lots of great opportunities. Unfortunately, we are getting to the end of our conversation. Colonel Hague, General Leavitt, thank you both so much for starting this interesting conversation. The future of STEM and space exploration is an exciting one. Don't forget, you are the next generation of explorers. We hope that you will join us and continue exploring.
And as we leave the moon, we leave as we came, and God willing, as we shall return.
You probably dreamed of this.
Liftoff on Apollo 11.
You probably replayed this moment 1,000 times. You probably imagined the awe-inspiring, indescribable rush of the ride. You probably celebrated the miraculous, cheered the momentous, and mourned the shocking. You probably still dream of what could be. We did. We do. And while many thought we were through, no. We've been learning, we've been building, we've been training. And now, it's time. Because the next frontier is not just for the next generation. It's for this generation. It's for me, and it's for you. For everything we still dream about. We go as Artemis.